Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fix My Fees podcast, where merchant services is so boring. I bring on interesting people to come in and have a conversation with so that they can teach you something. I am your host, Tavius Washington, and I have been maneuvering in this kind of podcast series in many ways of moving from like ways that people can teach you how to scale your business with like marketing to like compliance issues with lawyers. And today's guest has like just a new perspective in what I've seen from their LinkedIn, which will bring them on, right? Well, this person today has 25 years of corporate and digital marketing experience. They've worked with brands like Google, Clorox, and Charles Schwab. But what they really do is they are certified clinical hypnotherapists. So they blend these together in a way that makes executive coaching really work down in your conscious and subconscious mind. And I think that that is a unique take that we really should dive into. She's also the co-host of Mind Power Meets Mystic podcast and the author of ABCs of Conscious Leadership. Help me, everybody. Welcome along, Michelle Walters. How you doing, Michelle? I'm
doing great. Thank you so much, Tavius. I'm happy to be here on your show.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on here. I know when I first came past it, I was kind of like, I'm used to seeing profiles that like try to make a unique spin on the same things. Like I'm a Facebook marketer, but I use this analytic nobody does. But yours was new, and I haven't heard of that before. So before we dive into like, how you got into this, what is it that you're doing with people on a day-to-day basis? Like, how are you helping people?
I help people who are stuck in their mindset get unstuck. It's really kind of that simple. I'm not here to medically advise you about eat corn or don't eat gluten. I help people who are basically stuck in a bad habit or a bad way of thinking, perhaps, to find a way through, past, over, around, beneath, whatever it takes, so that that bad thinking pattern is released and they can start thinking about themselves and seeing themselves, really identifying themselves as a different person. And so I help people quit smoking. I help people overcome fear of getting on an airplane. I help people get ready for opening opportunities for a new job. I help people to start going to sleep instead of spinning and overthinking at night, which is something people are prone to do. So I help people with a lot of different problems because I'm very good at understanding people and understanding persuasion and helping people really get in touch with their subconscious mind, which we all have, we all rely upon, but it sometimes gets to be a little broken recordy. It sometimes gets to be a little problematic, and that's where I can step in. So the bigger part of my practice right now is that I help people one-to-one with what's going on with them. And I'm sure at some point this came up in your research on me and probably distinguishes me from many of your guests, but I also have a digital tool. I realize the value of self-hypnosis and just how much work people are able to generate on their own with a recording. And so I created a tool that makes a customized self-hypnosis recording for the client in a matter of minutes at a very affordable price. So the one-to-one work and then the digital work. That's kind of me.
Got it. That's awesome. So how is it that you blend it? What is it that makes hypnotherapy powerful that it can work with? Let's say like, I know a lot of people, especially in like the entrepreneurial world, maybe they suffer from imposter syndrome or they have bad habits that keep them from doing the thing that needs to be done. So they're always procrastinating. Like, how does hypnotherapy play into being able to even assess or help with that?
What hypnotherapy does is it's been touted as paranormal and all this stuff for years. And it's kind of exciting to think about that and to watch movies where people are like hypnotized into doing something crazy, right?
Right.
But it's really not that exciting or dramatic. It is tapping into what I think of as kind of that quiet inner side of yourself. It is tapping into the stuff that's beneath the surface. That is your memories, your dreams, your patterns, your wishes, all of that sort of a thing, to acknowledge what's there. And when those baselines are not working for you, to address them in a new and different way. You know, for example, a client who's afraid to get on an airplane knows that getting on an airplane is actually way safer than getting in their car. They know that, right? But at a subconscious level, there is something getting triggered that they need to work through and repattern in order to rebuild, in many cases, rebuild that confidence that getting on a plane is going to be okay. And I can help people like that. I do help a lot of people with imposter syndrome. I mean, I think it's always been there, but you know, the spread of social media has really dialed up our sensitivity to and our comparison to others.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you know, people start thinking, oh, I'm not as good as, I'm just not qualified, I'm not whatever. And you got to be realistic, but odds are pretty good. If somebody's handing you the mic, they want to hear what you have to say, right?
Right.
And so, you know, those are the kinds of folks that I'm working with.
And how did you, I'm guessing the becoming a clinical therapist came first and then you started to like dwell that together. How did you get into being able to hybrid these?
So I think I've always been fascinated in how people think. I've always been fascinated in this. And after I went to business school, that materialized as a coach, as a career in digital marketing. So, you know, how do we persuade someone to make a phone call to their financial investor and consider a new kind of IRA? How do we get people to read about what Google thinks about something? It's been very sort of behavior and trial and really on the basis of trying to help someone's business in terms of what I did in my digital marketing career. And I love digital marketing and I still like doing it, but it is no longer the forefront of my business. A few years ago, and this is true, it's a crazy story, but I had worked with a hypnotherapist before. I kind of knew what that was, but for whatever reason, none of it really mattered. And then I read a book, a novel about a hypnotherapist, like this story about this hypnotherapist. And I was like, oh my God, this lady has a really cool job. I want to do that. And so I went to school on the weekends. I got my certificates. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, you know what? It's time for a change. And so that's when I opened the doors to my private practice in hypnotherapy. I started seeing clients both online as well as in person. I live in the East Bay of California and buzzing along doing that for a while. And then last year, I had this little aha moment when my inner voice, because we all have those little inner voices. That's a lot of what I work with. My inner voice said, Michelle, this AI train is coming. Do you want to be run over by this train or do you want to drive the train? And I was like, I want to drive the train. And I see this need for people to be able to create custom scripts, custom visualization scripts that are effective and help them to manifest change. So, you know, if you have a sleep problem, maybe your sleep problem is big enough that you want to talk to me or another clinical hypnotherapist to really work through what's going on because you need that one-to-one help. That's a certain category of client. But there's also a category of client who's like, look, I just need a little help, but all these free YouTube videos that I can get for going to sleep have me dreaming about being on the beach and I hate the beach. I want to be on a mountain. Or my problem isn't going to sleep, it's staying asleep. Or like there's a lot of content that's out there, but it's not personal. It's not made for the individual. And now because of the miracles of technology, we can change all that. You no longer have to but you no longer have to listen to the made for everyone audio. You can listen to a made for you audio. And that's what my tool, makemyhypno.com does. I call it an app. It's really a web app. It's a website, but it makes custom scripts for people in a matter of a few minutes. Pretty cool.
That is cool. That is cool. I know I was talking with someone where they deal with like intuition, like how can you harness the effort of intuition? And they were talking about the language, like they want the language to be more known because it still feels woo woo. And one thing that I brought up was like, well, we felt that way about subconscious, right? Like if you drive home and you get home and you're like, how did I get here? I don't even remember driving the last
Absolutely.
10 minutes, right? It's like your subconscious. So it just now became readily available that people are okay with saying subconsciously I did it without thinking, when before it was like, no, you had to have known. But what are the biggest things that are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to your subconscious and how it works?
I think one of the biggest, like I said, one of the biggest conceptions that I run into is there's this whole idea that this is woo woo or this is inaccurate or untrustable or something like that. And the fact of the matter is that the purpose of your subconscious is to keep you alive. That is its goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it is causing you to have troubles going to sleep or not wanting to get on the airplane or being worried about being behind the mic, these are all reactions happening in the subconscious where your subconscious is saying, hey, we're not sure this is a good idea. Right? We're not sure this is a good idea. There's some amount of uncertainty in this, and maybe I'll wind up looking foolish or the plane will crash or whatever. And the biggest thing that people need to overcome is like, if you need a little help with this, that's pretty normal. Like it's not weird to need a little help with this.
Yeah.
And what form that help needs to take is, up to you. Maybe a recording would help you. Maybe a conversation would help you, but you shouldn't be ashamed or anything of asking for help. That's, how do you think the big people got there? They got help.
Yeah. Yeah. I do feel like enough people don't think of it as something you can use, right? Or something that you have. It's more of like something they feel like just happens randomly at random times and I don't know why or how it works. And that's where the scary part comes from, is the unknown.
Yeah, it's
So
really a fear. It's really a fear of the unknown,
Yeah. And so when you're placed in that, how does that affect what you're doing when people come to you and are wanting to help, but they also don't know if this is going to work or don't know if spending money on something like this is the right thing to do? Because like you said, the advertisements are made for everyone. So usually there's a product or plan behind it, which is catered to as many people as possible. And so when you can't go to sleep, they blame it on this thing. And then they want to sell you something when everything is different for a person. So how do you have those conversations when people are needing you, but also apprehensive on if it will work?
Well, the first thing about hypnosis is that, guess what? It doesn't work if you think it's not going to work. It's that simple. And so, if you don't believe that it's possible to get over your fear, great. It's not time for us to talk. You've got to get to the place where you believe that it is possible to get past whatever it is that you are stuck on, right? And so, as I interview potential clients, I am confirming that they have a good measure. Don't have to be perfect about it, but you have to have a good measure of faith that this would work for you. Because if you don't think it's going to work, we don't need to have a conversation. Like it just doesn't matter. Right. So I think that's really the first thing. And then the second thing is, how much is this obstacle costing you? And I don't mean necessarily costing you in terms of money. Sometimes it's about money, right? But oftentimes it's really about lifestyle. So if you're somebody who's, I don't know why I keep coming back to it today, but if you're somebody who really wants to go overseas, but you can't get on a plane because you're afraid, it's costing you something, right? If you are smoking all the time and you want a partner who doesn't smoke, it's costing you something, right? So, you have to, when I talk to clients, they are generally at the point of recognizing that whatever this thing they're stuck on is costing them something and they want to change it. As an example, I had a client a few years ago who came to see me because she was terrified of being stung by a bumblebee. Terrified. She would run from her car door to my office door because she was afraid she would get stung between the car and the office. And it was all of about 30 feet. Okay. Mm-hmm. This lady had never actually been stung by a bumblebee, but she was that terrified. She was so terrified she couldn't spend any time outside. We investigated and I helped her and we reframed and we came up with a hidden memory in her childhood that explained where this came from. Was it a real memory or a made up memory? I don't know. But once she had a story about where this was coming from, her mind was ready to release the fear. And so for her, what this had been costing her was an inability to spend any time outdoors. As a result of our work, she didn't have to run. She could sit on her patio at night. She could go to her boyfriend's picnic. Like life really changed because it was costing her something. It was costing her a high degree of freedom. And that's not unusual for my clients.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times when we think about opportunity cost, it usually does come back to dollar and cents. And don't get me wrong, there's probably a lot of people watching right now that have problems where it is messing up the return on investment. But there's usually a lot of other catalysts that are involved in it, right? Like if a person has insomnia and they run a business and they have to go into work a little tired, that means mornings may be a little bit more aggravated because I have to have my coffee. Right. Which means it can roll over into employees, which goes into performance, right? Or imposter syndrome keeps them from new opportunities. And so I do like that understanding that sometimes it's not just the money. It could be your personal life. It could be your business life. It could be a combination of everything. Or even just your relationships could be affected by
absolutely by these wrong, I don't know if it's wrong. It's irrational thinking, right? One of the things that attracted me to your show, Tavius, is the title of your show, Fix My Fees. Because one of the things that I've started doing with small business people is a little package I call Raise Your Rates, which seems to fit very well with Fix My Fees.
I love that.
For small business people who recognize that maybe they're not charging what they need to be charging, and they need a little boost of confidence to be able to say a different number on the sales call, right? And so in these cases, are you going to pay for my help? You're going to pay for my help. But if my help enables you to bump up your fees by $50, $200, whatever that change is for your business, it's going to pay off pretty quickly. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying that everyone out there has fees that are too low. But there are people who are behind on keeping their rates up to date, and I can help with leveling up those rates to the right rate for today.
Yeah, we do see that all the time in the industry. You can usually tell because they're burning themselves out because they're priced so well that everybody's joining and they're burning themselves out, but yet they're scared of the jump in price might run everyone away or whatever other irrational.
Or they just, I can't charge more than $100. Well, if your competitors are charging, if your competitors are charging more than $100, then you probably can,
Yeah. And if nobody is, then there needs to be a luxury first one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So what I can help with is not necessarily figuring out what that number needs to be. I leave that up to the client, but I can help with the techniques, the tools, and the confidence to say a different number, to put a different number on the proposal, to better express and be more confident in the value you're bringing in order to level up and raise rates when that's the timely thing to do for one's business.
Yeah. Now I want to kind of separate this next question into like business owners versus like us as individuals and people. And so when we think of it from a business owner's perspective, what's one thing you wish they knew either about hypnotherapy or about their subconscious that you just wish more people knew about how powerful it is?
I think the biggest thing is that people kind of get over the bias or myth we have that it's some kind of magical thing. It's not. We knew it worked for a long time, but in the last, I think about 10 years ago, we started doing more research and putting people in a hypnotic state into an MRI machine. Lo and behold, people in a hypnotic state have changed different parts of their brain. They've dialed some up, they've dialed some down. And so there is a scientific basis to all of this. And so, I'm not doing anything or helping people with anything that it isn't scientific.
Right.
It's just, we didn't have an MRI machine back in the 70s or the 50s or whatever to be able to say this is why. And so a lot of people at that time were like, oh my God, it's scary. It's woo woo. It's whatever. No, science is catching up with some of these things. And so we've really found more reasons to recognize that there is science behind it. And I mean, when I say some of the things that make it work, it's like, well, it's positive thinking and repetition. I mean, it's more than that, but a huge part of it is positive thinking and repetition. The brain likes that. When the brain hears those messages in the right state, it is more welcoming and accepting of those messages. And then it makes it easier and easier to up the rate, to make a phone call to get help, to ask for what you want, and enables people to change lives. Does that answer the business side of the question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. And it does kind of answer the personal side too, right? Of what person can believe. But do you feel like there's a difference in how they may approach working with you if they're personal versus business?
I used to think of personal and business as being so separate. And I think
I did too. But the more we talk, the more I'm like, maybe not as much. That's why I asked that.
It's not as much as I used to think, I mean, I went to business school in the 90s and, I left there in my little suit and feeling all good. And, business is business and personal. That's a different category completely. And what I've come to recognize, I guess, as I've gotten a little older, as the marketplace has changed, as my work has changed, is that business and personal, they're not so different, really. They're not so different. If you're a small business person like me, you're your brand all the time. You're probably the same way, Tavius. Like, you got to solve people's problems and handle their business, but you're doing so as yourself. Right? And that is kind of who you are and what you can do and use and support for your clients. So, I mean, I think where it sometimes feels a little different is if you're a business person and you need to up your rate, and upping your rate and my raise your rate fees like jive together, maybe that makes it a little bit more easier to make the investment because you can kind of think about it in a dollars and cents sort of way. How do you put a value on spending time outside or getting on an airplane or even sleeping better? Like, these are things that we don't really have great metrics around, but it doesn't mean they're not life altering for people in those circumstances.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's like what they need to accomplish is everyone is around the same, right? Depending on what it is, but like what we're going to dive into. But their reason for coming to you, that may be different, right? The person may think that their problem is imposter syndrome, which is affecting their business until you work with them and realize it's something deeper. But it could be that same thing that, a person keeps them from applying for the manager job over top of, staying as an employee or, inside of it. So I'm starting, the more we talk about, I'm starting to realize that it kind of isn't really different.
It's a hazy line between them, really. No, it is interesting. I have had people come to me. I've had a couple of women come to me like, I want to forget him. I had an ex-boyfriend and we were together a long time and I want to forget him. And I'm like, look, I can help you like create more distance and not care as much and be more in the present about what you have going on today. But I can't create complete amnesia that you're going to forget that you were with this guy for years. I can I can help you to care less. And that's very valuable. So there are things that people want a hypnotherapist to do that we can't do.
I'm going to say, is that's one of the common misconceptions? They feel like, can you help me get rid of this thought altogether?
Yeah, that is a misconception, because I suppose maybe there are people who would tell you they could, but I haven't been able to exercise thoughts exactly like that. But that doesn't mean I don't help change people's thinkings. Like recently, I had a client who came to see me and she said, my problem is that I eat cookies. I eat cookies a lot, like all the time. Like if I go to the store, I will buy cookies every time. And so I got her to stop thinking about cookies. She's not eating cookies anymore. In her case, it was related to the habit seemed to start when she was in a moment of grief, and the cookies became sort of a way of treating herself a little pleasure while she was really hurt and having to cope with some big life problems. And, how do you quantify not eating cookies? I mean, I guess you could say, well, that's 5 packs at $5 a piece a week. I'm not buying. I don't know. But it's much more than that, right? It's more freedom. It's more health. It's more confidence, it's changing a lot of different aspects of one's life simultaneously. And, I love what I did before. I don't know that everybody would like it, but I thought it was kind of fun figuring out ways to get people to buy this product or try this or have a call or whatever. I like that kind of work. But I really love the work that I do now because it's changing a lot of individuals' lives. So, and actually I don't know if this is relevant to your audience, but I'm starting to pilot using my online make a recording tool for businesses. So if businesses wanted to be able to offer recordings to help their clients, or not their clients, their employees, with sleep and phobias and imposter syndrome and stress and all of those things, I have a pilot program where I'm testing that out. So if anybody listening is interested in an employee wellness benefit, I would love to have some conversations around that. So
yeah, I like that. It's, as a business owner, it's like I care about, I'm already going through this. I care that my employees may be going through something and provide them the resources. That's awesome. But yeah, the kind of, put this all together. How are you leveraging AI now with what you're doing? And what do you think the future of what you're doing, hypnotherapy and everything all combined, and AI, how do you feel like that will be impacted in the future?
I mean, we don't know where this AI train is going. None of us know.
No,
I think many people I talk to are in agreement that we should create more agreement about what we want it to do and not to do. My perspective on it is that it is a tool. It's a tool, right? You can use a hammer to build a house. You can use a hammer to break something. It's a tool. And one thing that is true about AI at the moment is it's very good at putting words together, and it is very good at being positive. And so I have trained it to sound like me, to follow the rules of what a good hypnosis script should sound like. And it does an excellent job of creating a fake me. Is it as good as me? No.
Right.
Is it almost as good as me? In many cases, it can be. It's not going to clear out the inner child. It's not going to figure out that you're eating cookies for this reason or that you're afraid of bumblebees because of that.
Right.
But if what would help you is a little boost, a little extra confidence that you can start that exercise habit, that you can go to sleep when you want to, it's fabulous. So I don't know where it will all go. I don't think any of us know. I would like to see that society, as well as the makers of all of these tools, find ways to create some guardrails, create some ways that we can encourage its use in positive, human, helpful kinds of ways, because it's a tool. And it can be used for great things like my little app, but it can certainly be used for more nefarious purposes. And that's not helpful.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Right. That's how we felt like when the internet came about too. It is like, man, there's so many good things, but people can use it for nefarious reasons and they still do. But like you said, it's a tool. That's why
it's a tool.
Automations, workflows, it's a tool.
It's
just
a
like
tool.
the CRM.
Yeah. And, I think in a lot of ways it can do a lot of great things, right? It can simplify some of my processes. It can send things out so that I don't have to do them one by one. It can do all kinds of wonderful, wonderful things that have the likely side effect of freeing people up to do more of what they love. But now it can create music and it can do all of these things. And I think it has the potential to really alter what we see as human, alter how we spend our time. And I don't know. I just want to see it enrich things as opposed to create poor replacements. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
or to push people out of jobs. Once I started realizing like, oh, it's not just, I don't know, the lawyers or the accountants, it could potentially change the makeup artists in Hollywood because now they don't have to do the makeup every day. They just layer it on with AI. It could change. Like my eyes start kind of like blowing up at all of the possibilities, and not all of them will come to be, but some of them may. And the world, I think we're just heading into a more and more and more excitement and uncertainty, and we'll see how we can go. I hope that in my little way, I can use my beliefs in leadership and subconscious mind and positivity to, make a few people's lives a little better and maybe make a few companies able to support their employees in new and different ways that are better.
What is your favorite, or not favorite, or, an example of someone you worked with that stands out to you? Just like one testimony or a case study that you had where you worked with someone. This could be business or personal. I'll leave it up to you because I think it's interesting either way. But just one that stands out to you where at the end result, you loved it.
So I had a client who came to see me a few months ago. She was a person who worked in medical tech, and she had been, she had been at her organization for a few years. She had been off work for like 3 months or 6 months because she'd had a major health operation. And the job that she'd had immediately before her departure from work had been more of a leadership role, like a boss role or floor supervisor or something like that. So she'd been sort of a worker bee, and then she was the lead bee, and then she had this break in employment. She'd been out of work. She was getting ready to go back to work, not as the leader, but as back to a regular job, because when she'd been a leader, it hadn't gone very well. She had tried to get the organization to make some changes. She tried to lead in a certain way. It really hadn't worked out. And so in our work together, we were able to kind of better understand from her perspective why being a leader didn't pan out for her. What was it about her? What was it about the organization? Right? Some of it belonged to her. Some of it belonged to them. Right? What were the techniques that she was going to use going back to work, where some of the people in her organization adored her and loved her, and some of the people in her organization had a bad taste in their mouths from this previous experience as being the boss. And she was quite nervous about going back to work, and reasonably so. Our work together made that bumpy road smooth, so that she could go back to work after this absence. I've worked with a couple people who've had health absences and needed to go back to work. She could go back to work feeling confident, clear, having the right words to say when these past experiences came up, understanding what to flag, knowing what she should own, what she didn't need to own. Just really an increased level of confidence and clarity about her role and where she fit in the organization. And so it was a lovely project. I'm so happy that I could help her with that transition.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I just wanted to kind of put a icing on the cake of like the different kind of
No,
things
I think
out
it's
there for people.
people don't know, and people, so, and another thing that comes up is that people are like, oh, could Michelle help me with this? And maybe it sounds
Right.
really weird, right? And maybe not. There are a few things that I tend to shy away from. There are a few styles of people that I don't think I would be the best person to serve. But I love having those conversations. And I've done some kind of, I don't know, less usual things that have panned out pretty well. I'm thinking now of a woman that I helped with morning sickness and a guy I helped with erectile dysfunction. Like, they're kind of weird things, but they are partly in your mind. So
Right.
if you or someone you know is, I wouldn't even say suffering, but maybe not flourishing because of a stuck pattern, I'd love to have a conversation and see if it's one of the patterns I think I'd be successful in helping someone with.
And if they could, how can they reach out to you?
Easiest way to reach out to me is to go to my website. My name is Michelle Walters. My personal website is michellewalters.net. And there's a big button at the top that says book a consult, and you can just pick a time and we will have a Zoom call and I'll listen to what's going on and see if I think I can help. That's the best way to reach me. The way to try my app is to go to my other website, because as I said, it's a web app. It's called makemyhypno.com, spelled just like it sounds, makemyhypno.com. And you can order your script there and read a lot more and listen to some examples and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to make sure I put that in the bio. Easy to click on. But, I kind of like this podcast. Hopefully people are driving and they can listen in too. So I want people to say it because it's kind of committed to memory when they can hear it and then go back and see it later. So
absolutely. You want to be able to find it in the show notes when you're like, what was that? I want to check that
out. Put that in the transcripts.
I got it.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much for coming on to my podcast today, Michelle. But before we leave, what is Michelle like outside of it? When you're not helping people overcome these, these things and really starting to help them flourish in the different problems that they're having, what are you usually doing? What type of person are you outside of that?
I am a person who likes to do things. I like to go listen to live music. I like to go camping in my camper van. I like to go hiking. I like to, I don't know, enjoy life. I've been dealt some good cards and some unfortunate ones. And I am a big believer in what do you have? You have the present. And it is very important to enjoy it.
I love that. Yeah, I love that portion of it because it does let people know, like, as they're ready to go work with someone, getting a little bit of their personality, especially if they're looking to reach out.
I'm just a real person. There is an AI version of me that you can acquire for yourself. But I am a real person. And just trying to make the world for people a little better inch by inch,
Yep. One person at a time. One person's change can affect their family, their friends, themselves, and who they touch going forward. So the more people you help, the more people they can impact going forward. And I love that kind of domino effect, right? Reach one, teach one. I love it.
Thank you, Tavia. This has been very fun to be on Fix My Fees.
Thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it. So thank you one more time for hopping on here with me, Michelle. It's been so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Definitely like and subscribe if you like my style of interviewing. If you love the fact that I bring on just new and different, different and interesting people. I said disresting. Maybe I'll make up a new word coming out, different and interesting to combine. But talking about hypnotherapy. And if you have a business or an expertise where you're doing something awesome and that's different, like Michelle is, you can reach out to me also at tavius@fixmyfeesteam.com. That'll also be in the bio. So thank you one more time, Michelle. And thank you all for watching another episode of the Fix My Fees podcast. I hope this wasn't as boring as merchant services. Thank you and good night.